Ladies, gentlemen, and arisen of all ages, when it comes to the world of Dragons Dogma 2, there are a ton of things worth your attention, and while the game can feel incredibly shallow if you choose to just follow the main story and not do any exploring, the depth that is available if you go out searching for it is immense. And so I've always said that this game is a sort of sliding scale, where you get out of it exactly what you put into it. So today I want to talk about some of the more either rewarding, hidden, or interesting caves and dungeons around the map, with the idea that every one of these is at least partially fitting every one of those adjectives, even if it leans a lot more towards one of them than the other two. And we'll go in a sort of map progression order just to organize it a little bit. Starting off then, first we have the Ancestral Chamber. This is a well-known cave to probably 80% or so of the player base. It's up here in the top corner of the Elven Forest, but also it has an exit on the backside to Melve as well, which would be really convenient if you could connect this, obviously, as there is an ox cart to Melve from Varnworth. But as almost every player who has tried to get in here knows, there's a door with a wooden block behind it on both sides, both on the Melve exit and on the Elven Forest side, so you can't actually get through either of the doors. There's no clear way to actually destroy them, there's no holes in the walls or anything to throw things through, which means that this, for whatever reason, is just a completely intentionally locked off connection, a mystery unsolved, unless, well, you glitch it out. The two ways that I've seen people do this are either by waiting until night, and once you have fully completed the elf quests that take part in this cave, then skeletons should actually spawn in behind this gated door from the inside part of it. You can then just sort of wander around there trying to bait them until they hit the block and pop the door open for you. It's not consistent by any means though. The other way is by, well, glitching your pawn through the wall and the door using the grab and put down animation, which again is also extremely unreliable, but it is also possible. And if you're wondering what's behind these doors, it's literally just a pathway connecting the two doors. Crazy that they did this really, but hey, this is how you unlock this if you want it as a nice earlier game map connection, though again, it's pretty difficult to do. And let's be honest, it feels like they sort of made a mistake putting both of these doors on the wrong side. Second of them, we have one that is technically earlier on the map, but you won't find it, or at least won't want to go there for a little bit, which is the Waterfall Cave. This is the place that you crash into right at the very beginning of the game when you're riding on the griffin away from the excavation camp. When you initially land, the griffin's body is blocking this entrance, but if you come back here after a rest, the griffin will disappear, because it's sort of like a tutorial for the way that the game world moves as time passes, and the griffin will then be gone, so the cave will be open. This is actually one of the more sprawling indoor areas of the game, and it has multiple bosses inside, including a chimera that can even become a gore chimera for players at further progression levels, like the one that I'm fighting here. There's also a lich in here that happens if you open a specific chest, which importantly is containing 2 rare books that can be found for hand-ins to either of the sorcerer meisters. Third up then, we have a simpler but also deeper one, which is the Strange Corridor. This is just a short jaunt off of one of the main paths toward the checkpoint rest town to the west, but it is a bit off the beaten path. It's not overly hidden, but it's not obvious either. The cave itself is somewhat uneventful inside, but when you reach the other end of it, there is an exit out to the Misty Marshes, which is a really special area of the map in itself, being one of the only places on the map where you will have actually no actual map really. It's sort of locked into a permanent night. It's sort of a magical darkness type of area. There's a number of bosses in here as well, some really good loot around the place, and some interesting secondary locations that you can reach from here as well, like a griffin's nest or a certain shrine off the mountains. For today we have Thunderclap Cavern, and this is a really neat one, being the southern edge of one of the secondary border crossings into Batal. To be more clear, there are 3 ways to actually get into Batal from Vermund: the main border gate, the obvious one, the side cave path to the east, and the long side path to the west. At the southern edge of the last path there on the west is the Thunderclap Cavern, and because it is designed to be entered from either end, as the player could easily come from either way, this is just a particularly interesting looking location. It is a really interesting place, and the way that it looks is honestly just stunning. Indoor waterfalls, light shining through various entrances, just a really cool area really. It's really worth having a look at, if nothing else. It's not the biggest cave, but it is one of the more beautiful, and while it doesn't have any particularly large rewards inside, it does lead to a whole off section of the map that a lot of people don't even explore a whole lot. Fifth up today, then we have the Tomb of Algotos. This is on the far western side of Batal, west of the exit for the rope lift that travels that direction. The path itself is translucent on the map, so it's hidden until you actually happen to go upon it, and it winds you around quite a bit of a cliff face that you have to climb before you can actually find the cave entrance. What's inside then is what's the really fun part here, because in this tomb you can find one of the only duo boss fights in the game, which is a lich with a skeleton lord as their minion. This is a pretty special combo, honestly, especially because a part of the lich's toolset in general is to raise undead that will serve them, but this skeleton lord is treated as one of the lich's minions. So if you kill the skeleton lord boss first, he can actually be resummoned and respawned, revived by the lich. So you could argue that this is just a particularly powerful lich, but either way, it is a unique encounter in a pretty far off cave. Sticking to the same general area though, we have Dark Beast's Den, and this is not a particularly long cave, but it is also quite off the actual path, being on the western edge of Batal again, with no actual path leading to the entrance of the cave itself. Inside of here are two main things of importance: a really cool lightning-infused hammer for warriors, but also serpents, the electric saurians. This is one of the only places that you can find this enemy type in the game. They're quite unique, and it's cool to actually be able to fight them. Then for number 7, we have something extremely interesting, but not necessarily one that you need to actually go and specifically enter yourself, just something absolutely worth knowing about. And according to the player who actually found this bug that shows the area, the game calls this the Western Ruins. This is in that same cluster at the western side of Batal, very far off on the edge. It is at the very edge of a final pathway in that direction where there is actually a campfire as well. In game, it's just sort of a rocky cliff wall, but you can see a sort of collapsed wall with a door in front of it. But if you press yourself against it, and if you look in using your camera, there is a way that you can quite interestingly see a door in here that looks identical to the spell seal door in Batal, the one that is only openable if you have a god swipe. There is no chance that this is just here by accident, right? So it seems likely, if not pretty much guaranteed, then that this little spot here, this door, was at least at one point planned to be the staging ground for a full bonus area of the game, whether that be content that has been cut from the game, or maybe it's preparations for future DLC that will come right through this cave and this door into a whole new area. Or maybe it's just something that they changed their mind about that they did originally want to do. But somebody put this door here at some point while making this game, and somebody put terrain on top of it trying to hide it for now. And I think that's just really fascinating, to say the least. Number 8 today is the Tomb of Amana, and this is in a fun spot too, right under the central ropeway station, which I think is one of the weirdly least explored areas because most people only stay at the top of that area, but it's just at the bottom of the plateau there. It's on this, and you can just find this little tucked in grotto type area south of it with a little pond, a very narrow path beside the pond, and an actual entrance to this tomb at the bottom of that. So generally speaking, it is quite a hidden area to find. Inside of this, there are also two pieces of gear, being the Abyssinal neck wrap, which is a nice looking thin long cloak, and then also the Doomed Dove turban, which is a trickster helmet, also usable by warfare of course. Then 9th up today, we are staying in Batal but heading more south. On the long winding path towards Dragon's Breath Tower, there is of course the cave with the Medusa in it that pretty much everyone does know about, but then there is also this cave here that a lot of people miss, as it isn't marked at all with a path leading up to it on your map, so it's hard to find unless you just happen to walk up to it, which is Sal Batal Cave. Inside of here, there is a particularly nice set of mid to later game thief daggers, but also this is one of the few spawn locations for gorms if you need their particular materials for some equipment upgrades, so a good spot to be aware of for sure. Then our final cave of the day is probably the most obvious one on this list, but it also is very missable, but extremely important and full of rewarding loot, which is Drabnir's Grotto. This is the cave that connects the southern tip of Batal to the Agamemnon volcanic island. If you just go for story stuff, once you get to Batal, you can get to the volcanic island through a different entrance pretty quickly, but if you are someone who decided to do any real proper exploring of Batal first before reaching these later stages, you probably did find this cave, and in here there are multiple separate boss fights with things like a Cyclops and also a Griffin. There's some of the best warrior armor in the game, one of the best fighter weapons as well, and just a whole bunch of other things too. If you haven't been here, you should absolutely come here, and if you have been here and maybe you didn't explore it enough, maybe you didn't find that full long list of things I just mentioned, maybe you should come back here and have another closer look inside. That just about does it for today, then everyone. Just a nice collection of caves or dungeons that I think are some combination of hidden, rewarding, and just plain interesting too. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and hopefully you either learned of some new caves or just learned some things that might make your continued time with this game a little bit better. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.